So imagine sitting at your kitchen table for a second. You're just having your morning coffee.
Right, just a totally normal morning.
Exactly. But at the exact same time, you are simultaneously experiencing your first kiss and your last breath.
Oh, wow. That is a lot to process at once.
Right. You're feeling the adrenaline rush of a brand new job while also feeling the crushing grief of losing a loved one. Every joy, every tragedy, every incredibly mundane moment of your entire existence is just happening to you right now, all at once.
Yeah, that would completely shatter the illusion of surprise, wouldn't it?
Oh, totally. Would you even still care about the little things? Or would your own life just start to feel like, I don't know, a script you're being forced to act out?
I mean, if you already know exactly how your own movie ends, and you're watching the final scene while the opening credits are still rolling, you really start to question the point of going on the journey at all.
And that right there is the core tension we are unpacking today. Welcome, everyone. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the ultimate thought experiment regarding absolute power and absolute knowledge.
Yeah, and we're looking at this through the lens of Dr. Manhattan, the iconic character from the Watchmen universe.
Exactly. For those of you listening, we know you're probably already familiar with the basic lore, but today we are taking a massive stack of sources. We've got academic philosophical analyses, character wikis, and literal quantum physics breakdowns to just really dissect the mechanics of a quantum god.
We're definitely going way beyond the comic panels here. We're looking at the actual science of his physical transformation, right? And we're going to examine the crushing philosophy of determinism versus free will.
Oh, and the staggering geopolitical implications of a being who just, renders all nuclear arsenals completely obsolete, and ultimately what his tragic arc tells us about our own human experience.
It's a lot to cover.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the physics of how John Osterman actually became Dr. Manhattan back in 1959.
Right, the incident at Gila Flats.
Yeah, we all know the tragic origin. He gets locked in the intrinsic field subtractor test chamber. And why? Because he was trying to retrieve a repaired watch for his girlfriend, Janie Slater.
Which is just such a beautifully mundane catalyst for what happens next.
It really is. A broken watch.
Yeah.
But reading through the science behind this in the sources, I was struck by how the science of what happens next is anything but simple.
Definitely not simple.
Break down this intrinsic field thing for me. Because I know the lore, but what is physically happening to him in that chamber?
Well, it's brilliant because it's not just magic, right? It's science fiction deeply grounded in real physics. James Kakalios, a physics professor at the University of Minnesota, detailed this in our sources. He actually consulted on the 2009 film adaptation.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know they brought in an actual physicist.
Yeah, they did. And he explains that the intrinsic field the machine subtracts is essentially a stand-in for the fundamental forces of the universe, specifically the electromagnetic force and the strong and weak nuclear forces.
Okay, wait. So the strong nuclear force, that's what holds the nucleus of an atom together, right? Like
Yeah.
keeping the protons from just violently repelling each other.
Precisely. So when that generator kicks on, Osterman isn't burned. He isn't vaporized in the traditional sense of, like, a bomb going off.
Right.
The very rules of physics holding his subatomic particles together are simply turned off. He is instantly disintegrated at the quantum level.
Just reduced to a scattered cloud of probabilities.
Exactly. But the wild part is, his consciousness somehow survives in that quantum foam.
Which leads to a resurrection process that is genuinely terrifying when you map it out chronologically.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't just pop back into existence like a standard superhero.
Oh, not at all. It takes months.
Yeah, over several months, he appears as a disembodied nervous system floating in the cafeteria. Then, weeks later, a circulatory system. Then a partially muscled skeleton. It's just pure body horror.
Well, think of it this way. He is essentially a consciousness having to figure out quantum mechanics by trial and error.
Wow.
He has to consciously learn how to reassemble his own atomic structure from scratch.
Until he finally figures it out and manifests as the towering, glowing blue man with a hydrogen atom burned into his forehead.
Right.
And this is where the Kakalios physics breakdown gets incredible to me. Because the mechanics of his powers, the teleportation, the replication, the glow, they're all rooted in actual quantum phenomena.
They are. Kakalios attributes his teleportation to quantum tunneling.
Okay, ELI 5 that for me. Explain like I'm 5. How does tunneling let a guy just blink from Earth to Mars?
So, in classical physics, if you throw a ball at a solid wall, it bounces back. It doesn't have the energy to pass through.
Makes sense.
But in quantum mechanics, particles like electrons don't have an exact fixed position. They exist in a cloud of probability.
Okay, cloud of probability.
Right. So there is a non-zero chance that an electron can simply appear on the other side of a barrier without ever actually passing through the space in between. That's quantum tunneling.
And that's a real thing.
It's a completely observed, real-world phenomenon. So Dr. Manhattan essentially learns to manipulate his own macroscopic probability wave function. He just alters the probability of where his atoms are, and instantly he is on Mars.
That totally makes my brain hurt, but it makes sense.
Oh.
Now, what about the replication? He can make multiple, fully functioning versions of himself.
Yeah, Kakalios relates this to electron diffraction.
See, I admit I got a little lost in the source material right there,
Yeah.
because I thought electrons were particles. How does a particle acting like a wave translate to him making like 5 copies of himself to work on different projects?
That touches on wave-particle duality. When electrons pass through narrow slits, they don't just act like tiny baseballs hitting a wall. They create an interference pattern, acting like waves of water overlapping.
Oh, okay.
In a sense, the electron seems to exist in multiple places at once to interfere with itself. So Kakalios suggests Manhattan is extending this quantum weirdness to a macro level.
Oh, wow. So he's utilizing that wave function to exist in multiple physical locations simultaneously. And even the blue glow. It's not just an aesthetic choice by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons.
No, it's actually rooted in Cherenkov radiation. Manhattan is constantly leaking high-speed electrons, specifically beta rays, as a byproduct of his quantum state.
Right.
When these charged particles travel through a dielectric medium like the fluid in a human eye or the air moisture around him faster than the phase velocity of light in that medium, it produces a distinct, eerie blue glow.
It's the exact same phenomenon you see in the water surrounding the core of a nuclear reactor, right?
Exact same thing.
I just marvel at that. Instead of a generic radioactive spider bite, they turned him into a living, breathing particle accelerator.
They really did.
But that transition completely rewires his brain. Because his body was disassembled and reassembled at the quantum level, his consciousness becomes completely untethered from linear time.
And that is the tragic cost of his powers. To truly understand Dr. Manhattan, you have to understand the philosophy of the block universe and causal realism.
The block universe.
Yeah. For us, time is a flowing river. We move from the past through the present into the unknown future. But for Manhattan, time is a solid, unmoving block.
So he's basically living inside a DVD that's already been fully burned. He can't skip chapters. And he's experiencing every single frame of the movie simultaneously.
That is a perfect analogy. He isn't predicting the future. He is actively experiencing it. He is feeling the heat of the sun on his face in 1985 at the exact same moment he is feeling the cold glass of the test chamber in 1959.
And because he sees every single outcome as entirely fixed, he suffers from this profound moral paralysis.
He really does.
Think about your own life for a second, listening to this. If you knew with absolute 100% certainty the exact conversation you were going to have with your boss tomorrow, word for word.
You'd completely check out.
Right. There are no stakes. That is Manhattan's existence every single second. He views everything purely structurally. The sources point out this chilling detail to his eyes. A living human body and a dead human body contain the exact same number of particles.
Structurally, mathematically, there is no discernible difference to him between life and death.
Which is just the ultimate death of empathy. If life and death are just different arrangements of atoms, why intervene to save someone? It strips away the human imperative to protect.
Exactly. He famously says, "We're all puppets, Lori. I'm just a puppet who can see the strings."
I see what you're saying, but I have to push back on that a bit. Is it really apathy, or is it a self-fulfilling paralysis?
What do you mean?
Well, if he knows an event like the JFK assassination, or even his own messy breakups is going to happen, couldn't he just, I don't know, choose to do something else? Is his omniscience an excuse, or does it actually strip him of free will?
That is the paradox of causal realism. In his perception of the universe, cause and effect are a closed, immutable loop.
Okay.
If he sees himself failing to stop an assassination in the future, he literally cannot act differently in the present because the future he is currently experiencing is the direct result of the inaction he is currently performing.
Wow. So the foreknowledge is the paralysis.
Exactly. To attempt to change it would violate the fundamental physics of his own existence.
That total detachment from human emotion doesn't just ruin his dating life. It fundamentally breaks his ability to connect with anyone.
Oh, absolutely.
There's that incredibly alienating scene we all remember, where he uses his wave diffraction replication power to be physically intimate with Lori Silk Spectre, while his other bodies are simultaneously working on complex lab experiments in the next room.
And she is completely devastated when she realizes he's just treating human intimacy as another multitasking variable.
It's treating a human being like an equation to be balanced, and it eventually drives him to self-exile. He leaves Earth, goes to Mars, and builds that massive, intricate glass clockwork castle out of the Martian sands.
It's so beautifully tragic. The son of a watchmaker, retreating into a perfectly predictable mechanism millions of miles away from the messy, unpredictable chaos of human emotion.
But that detachment becomes utterly terrifying when you look at the broader geopolitical context. Because this being who cannot functionally distinguish between a living person and a corpse becomes the most powerful weapon in human history.
He does. And looking at the geopolitical analyses in our sources, it's fascinating because scholars are deeply divided on what Manhattan's presence actually meant for the Cold War.
Oh, for sure. Depending on the political or philosophical lens you use, he's either the savior of mankind or the ultimate monster.
And we should explicitly state right here for the listener, we are simply conveying the contrasting ideological arguments found in the source material. We are definitely not taking sides or endorsing either of these viewpoints.
Absolutely. We're just impartially reporting on what the academic and political analyses say in our sources.
Right. So if you look at the pacifist reading in the academic literature, Dr. Manhattan is viewed as a grim warning about the dehumanizing nature of the arms race.
He represents unchecked technological hubris.
Yes. The argument here is that pursuing absolute military superiority, creating a weapon so powerful it can win the Vietnam War in 3 months, strips away our humanity.
And the implications of that victory in Vietnam are massive in the lore. I mean, he grows to the size of a colossal giant, striding through the jungle, shooting destructive plasma.
And the Viet Cong surrender entirely.
Yeah. And because of this, President Nixon rides a massive wave of popularity, gets the 22nd Amendment repealed, and stays in power for decades. The pacifist view says this unchecked power leaves the world constantly on a knife's edge of fascism and annihilation.
But the realist perspective in the sources reads this entirely differently.
Okay, how so?
The realist view argues that his overwhelming power was actually a successful, albeit terrifying, stabilizing force. It's the ultimate application of mutually assured destruction, or MAD.
Right, because the Soviets wouldn't dare launch a nuclear strike.
Exactly. They know Manhattan can just wave his hand, vaporize a massive percentage of their incoming warheads in flight, and then obliterate their entire country in retaliation. From a strictly realist geopolitical standpoint, his mere existence successfully prevents World War III.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. He's keeping the peace, but at what cost? It feels less like peace and more like a global hostage situation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's like having a loaded gun sitting right in the middle of the table during a tense negotiation. His mere presence forces everyone in the room to freeze. Nobody breathes. Nobody makes a sudden movement. But the moment he gets tired of Earth and leaves the room to go to Mars, all hell breaks loose.
Which brings us to the brutal climax of his story on Earth and the ultimate test of his detached worldview.
The squid.
Yeah. When Ozymandias engineers his horrific squid gambit, dropping a fabricated psychic alien monster on New York City, killing millions of innocent people instantly.
Which was a plot to trick the U.S. and the Soviets into uniting against a fake extraterrestrial threat, thereby averting the very real threat of global nuclear war.
Right. When Manhattan realizes what Ozymandias has done, he has a choice. And he applies cold, detached, utilitarian ethics, millions sacrificed to save billions.
The math perfectly balances in his head.
Exactly. He agrees to keep the secret to preserve the geopolitical equilibrium.
And when his former teammate Rorschach refuses to compromise, when Rorschach threatens to walk out into the snow and tell the world the truth, no matter the consequences, Manhattan doesn't argue with him.
No.
He doesn't try to detain him. He just vaporizes him. He disintegrates him into a smear of blood in the snow to protect a lie.
Because to Manhattan, Rorschach isn't a friend anymore. He is simply a chaotic variable that threatens the structural integrity of the new peace. He values the abstract concept of equilibrium over individual human lives.
And after that chilling mathematical execution, he just leaves. He abandons his ruined, complicated world entirely to find a new galaxy.
But he doesn't just stop there.
No. What fascinated me in the sources is that his apathy eventually leads him to experiment with the very fabric of the broader DC universe. Leaving his own closed loop brings him face to face with his exact philosophical opposite.
Right, this transition occurs in the massive crossover events explored in Doomsday Clock and the New 52. Manhattan stops being a pawn and essentially acts as a multiversal architect.
Okay, so what does he do?
He's wandering the multiverse and becomes intensely curious about the concept of heroism, specifically Superman. Driven by a cold, clinical curiosity, he decides to deliberately tamper with the timeline.
He literally steals 10 years from the DC universe just to see what happens.
He treats the entire universe like a petri dish. He zeroes in on the Justice Society of America, the foundational era of hope.
And he prevents their formation, right?
Yeah, by simply moving a Grey Lantern out of reach of Alan Scott, causing him to die in a train crash. He removes hope from the timeline just to observe how the universe's antibodies react to the infection of despair.
But it leads to this incredible fated confrontation, because Superman represents absolute free will and unyielding hope, while Manhattan represents absolute determinism and crushing apathy.
It's the ultimate clash of ideologies.
Because of his nonlinear perception of time, Manhattan looks into the future and sees a moment where Superman is charging at him, furious, winding up for a massive punch. Yeah. And because Manhattan is so utterly disconnected from human empathy, he calculates only two logical outcomes.
He assumes either Superman is going to kill him, or Manhattan will be forced to destroy the entire universe to defend himself. He literally cannot fathom a third option.
And when that exact moment arrives, his omniscience completely fails him.
It does.
The punch isn't meant for Manhattan. Superman is actually throwing that punch to protect Manhattan from another villain attacking from behind.
Even after Manhattan admits that his timeline tinkering caused immense suffering, Superman's response isn't vengeance.
No, he steps in front of the quantum god to shield him and tells him he should use his immense powers for good.
That single moment shatters Manhattan's fatalistic worldview. Superman's unyielding humanity, his irrational choice to protect a being who caused him pain, proves that the script isn't always fixed. Hope can defy determinism. Manhattan realizes his error.
So he undoes the damage, he returns the Green Lantern to Alan Scott, restores the timeline, and brings back the Justice Society.
For the first time since he was John Osterman, he takes a proactive, positive action born out of hope, not cold mathematical calculation.
Wow.
He ultimately transfers his remaining cosmic power to a child he names Clark, ensuring the world has a protector, and then he willingly erases himself from existence.
He realizes that a universe without hope and without human connection isn't one he wants to blindly observe or manipulate anymore.
Exactly. It's such a profound arc. And it's worth noting the adaptations play heavily with this deep buried desire for humanity, too.
Oh, like the HBO series.
Yeah, the HBO series takes a fascinating alternative path. In that continuity, his desire to reclaim his humanity leads him to suppress his own powers entirely. He locks his memories away in a device and lives as a perfectly normal man named Cal Abar in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
He does all of this just so he can experience love, vulnerability, and the surprise of not knowing what happens tomorrow.
It is a beautiful sentiment, though we should briefly touch on the real-world meta-context surrounding these later multiversal stories.
That's right, Alan Moore's reaction.
Yeah, original creator Alan Moore completely disavows all these expansions, crossovers, and sequels. It highlights a massive real-world clash between creator ethics and corporate copyright.
Because Moore's original vision was so specific.
Right. His vision of Manhattan was a strictly closed-loop tragedy. Taking him out of that bespoke universe to meet Superman is seen by some critics as diluting the original philosophical weight for the sake of corporate IP synergy.
It's a completely fair critique of the publishing industry, honestly. But from a purely thematic standpoint, mapping out this whole journey is wild. We've traced John Osterman from a humble watchmaker's son to a glowing quantum god who lost his humanity in the gears of time.
Only to ultimately realize that absolute knowledge without human connection is just a prism.
And if we connect this directly to our own lives, think about the modern world you and I live in right now. We are constantly bombarded by an overwhelming, ceaseless flow of information.
We really are. We have the world's data, global tragedies, shifting geopolitical timelines, all accessible right in our pockets every second of the day.
Sometimes that sheer data overload can make us feel exactly like Dr. Manhatten. We become paralyzed by knowing too much. We feel overwhelmed by the scale of global events, which can lead straight into a protective shell of apathy.
We become the puppets who can see the strings, but we feel too small and too tired to actually reach up and pull them.
Precisely. But Manhattan's final realization, whether in the comic crossovers or the television adaptations, is a vital reminder. We don't need to know the future to make a meaningful impact in the present.
The value of an action isn't just in knowing its final, inevitable outcome. The value is in the hope, the intent, and the empathy behind it.
That is such a powerful takeaway to pull from this material. So we'll leave you with one final, lingering question to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
Let's hear it.
We talked in the very beginning about what it would be like to see your entire life, every joy and tragedy simultaneously. If Dr. Manhattan's ultimate tragedy was that absolute certainty made his existence unbearable, could it be that our own human limitations, our lack of omniscience, and our sheer inability to see what happens tomorrow are actually the very evolutionary traits that allow us to experience empathy, surprise, and love?